With me today is Meg, Toronto's own Modern Day Dolittle. We're going to talk about all things to do with animal communications. We're going to talk about some of the stories that Meg has in her awesome career. And Meg, what else are we going to talk about?
Okay, we're going to talk to animals here and past. We're going to actually talk to an animal that's recently crossed over, as well as one of Joe's dogs, so that's really exciting. We're going to talk about this thing about do the animals choose us, and this thing called soul contracts. And the coincidence, well, there's no coincidence, it's all by choice. We'll also unpack this notion of missing dogs. Have you ever wondered, are they missing by choice? There's something to really dive into. And then we'll also talk about my intuitive gifts, how I got them, the story behind it, and how I actually do the listening. So I'm really excited.
This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Stay tuned. Let's get the show on the road.
Okay, good. Let's do it.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to another episode with the Toronto Dog Whisperer. This is podcast number 3, and I'm joined today by this lovely guest. Her name is Meg, and oh boy, is this one going to be good. I've been looking forward to this forever. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So Meg is an animal communicator, and I was on her Instagram page doing a bit of research last night, and boy, oh boy, I saw a lion. So, animal communicator. I want to make sure that we start off on the right foot and really help the audience to understand, what is an animal communicator?
That's a really good question. To be honest, until I kind of started to explore this gift, I didn't know what they were either. I always thought Dr. Dolittle was just, some guy that could talk to animals, and there was really no... I thought it was all fiction. I really didn't think that this stuff could kind of come to reality, and I'd always experienced psychics and mediums. I'd always been so interested, and they were the intuitives, they were the gift keepers, things like that. But then I came along, and I'm like looking at myself in the mirror, I'm like, I don't look like your typical animal communicator. And then I'm thinking, like, what? Okay, Megan, take a step back, because what do they really look like? They could be anyone. It's a gift. It's an intuitive gift that I have, and it's really new. But it's really powerful, so...
It's amazing. So you can literally speak to animals, not just dogs or anything like that, like any type of animal?
Basically any species, yeah. In my mentorship and coaching that I did, we even did plants and water.
Wow.
So really, living organisms. So you can do everything from, your bears and your, like you said, lions in the wild, to your domestic cats and dogs, down to insects. And then you can, transfer over to your nature, your plants. They always say, talk to your plants.
Of course.
They will grow better. They will grow bigger. They will grow larger. They'll be leafier. They'll be greener. They'll be more beautiful. And,
absolutely.
And fragrant for your flowers. But yeah, that's true. It's true. You talk to your plants and talk to them, tell them sweet nothings, and they will grow for you. It's pretty beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm not the only one here. I mean, this podcast is all about dog lovers. Dog lovers are infamous for talking to their dogs.
Yes.
I know I do it.
Yes.
And I do it in public. I'm not ashamed of it. I'll have a full-on conversation with my dogs, and they love it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a natural thing as well.
Yes.
It doesn't, because you see people doing it, it doesn't seem like it's forced or you'll see somebody doing it, and then they'll actually realize, they're like, oh, I'm talking to my dog, but I'm in a pet store or something, and everybody else can hear me.
Yeah. Okay, so you hit a couple things that I want to unpack there. One is they do love it. All animals love it. And when I conduct a reading with any animal, at some point in the reading, I get my thank you for them. And it's them being like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. We're so happy that you've come to us on this level to communicate with us. But it's not just me that can do that kind of communication. You can talk to them. Everyone can talk to them. But it's how you talk to them. I think there's still this surface level disconnect between the human and the pet. That they don't know what we know. We don't give them enough credit. So you need to, you can talk to them. You can talk to them, tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. If there's someone else you don't have to talk to and you need someone to talk to them. They are there. They came for us. And we can talk about that a little bit more, because I know you're really interested about, how does that even happen? How do we come to have our pets? But, talk to them. And you can do it like we are now, verbally, out in the open, but you can also do a lot in your head. And I can even kind of give some tips on how to get out of your own way to do your own animal communication.
I think people are pretty comfortable talking to dogs and obviously all animals. But this is a Dogcast. It's a podcast for dogs. So I'm not excluding other animals. So if you're a cat lover, great. I love cats too. I used to have a cat, no worries. But we're going to probably focus more on dogs today. Mm-hmm. But dogs are great listeners. They don't judge you. Mm-hmm. They never complain. They're never too tired to listen to you.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that maybe you can help us with is how do we listen more? Yeah. Yeah. Because I think we do a lot of talking and they are great listeners. But I find a lot of people, the writings on the wall, I see a lot of things that dogs are trying to communicate to their people, but their people aren't listening. Do you find that a lot?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think like I said, there's that separation between the human and the dog. Mm-hmm. And we create, there's that pet, they don't know, they're not as smart as us. I always really, give people a side eye when they are like, oh, dogs can't feel. No, they are like all other animals. And this one thing, if nobody takes anything away from this podcast, is that animals are sentient beings. They are feeling. I've communicated with animals that feel sadness, that feel despair, that feel grief, excitement, joy, anxiety, the whole spectrum. So it's a beautiful thing. And your question was how to listen. Mm-hmm. I think the ego has to get out of the equation. So one thing I always ask myself is to get out of my own way. And people think, oh, there goes Megan talking about herself in third person. She must be an animal communicator. But in all actuality, is you have to get out of your own way. The ego has to be removed, because what happens if you ask one of the dogs a question, if you have Mosley or Mackenzie a question, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get an answer. Something's going to come up. You're going to say, Mosley, how are you feeling today? Mosley just looked at me. And the first thing that will come up, there'll be a response, okay? But then you're going to have a second and third response. That one didn't make sense. Okay, maybe she's actually feeling like this. No. That makes more sense for a day like today. It's kind of gloomy out, a little gray, whatever. She's probably not feeling that good. Especially with her age, and you'll justify it.
Yeah.
No, you got to take that all away. It's the very first thing that comes to you. And when people give their animals voices?
Yes.
I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, that voice is not far from the truth.
Okay, Meg, so before we get too far, I really want to take a step back and give some people some context, because I think everybody's wondering, how did you get into this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. 2018, I'd say the last year has been a big year for me in a lot of ways, and I've always engaged mediums and intuitives to help me in my own personal life. I've always been very curious. As a young child, I did own a lot of animals. I had some really interesting animal experiences. I've been bit by a number of dogs, to be honest with you. And so, most children would be quite scared or traumatized by that, but I'm realizing in hindsight, a lot of those things that happened throughout my life, the encounters, the experiences, they're all kind of framing me up for this. So to go back to the medium psychic thing, is I've engaged a few, and this past year there were 2 that I frequented on the regular, and 2 of them that don't know each other. And within a really short time frame, when we talked about my path and my career, they both mentioned animal communications. And I'm thinking, well, I already do animal communications because I do PR and marketing for a pet brand, so check that box. And they're like, no. Animal communications of the telepathic realm. And I thought, me? Who are they talking about? Okay, and then off to the next one, said the same and similar thing. And I think, okay, I've always been a very stubborn person. I almost have to get thumped over with the lesson over my head multiple times before I actually take it and move with it. And so that's basically what happened, is I better get on my high horse, and I better get myself some sort of course training, get my feet wet in this and just explore what I can explore and see what happens. And I'll tell you, I did the mentoring and communications courses with Maya Kincaid. She's world renowned. She's fabulous. She's out of Sedona, Arizona. And my first day, when I was actually in a group session, we're talking about each other's pets, and this couple ladies have cats. I've never owned a cat. In fact, cats have never really liked me. I'm gonna be honest with you. They've always peed on my stuff. They've always harassed me. They've and I don't mean harass, they've cornered me, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going anywhere.
Really?
And I'm talking about these ladies' cats. Mm-hmm. And then one lady pauses and says, Megan, I'm really curious, how long have you been doing this for? And I'm like, same amount of time as you. I just started. And they're like, you're really good at this. And I was like, okay. So, and while they struggled with getting out of their own way, I was already out of my own way, because I was like, this is freaking cool. And they gave me that validation right off the bat. I'd like to say a lot had to do with those ladies and the cats and that one experience, but it really did help me and get out of my own way. So that's how it got started. And I've been doing it for, my coming out, I would say, came out when I started my Instagram account.
Wow.
Yeah, which would have been, I think, just in July.
Okay, so really quickly, for anybody who's watching, who wants to check this out while they're watching or listening, it's Modern Day Dolittle.
_Dolittle.
Modern Day _Dolittle.
Yeah. That's the Instagram account.
That's the Instagram account.
Facebook as well.
Facebook as well. Let's do the Facebook as well, because that's going to be really interesting. What's your Facebook?
Same, Modern Day Dolittle. So you can do facebook.com/ all one word, Modern Day Dolittle, and then it'll come up. Yeah. Okay,
I'll put the links here. It'll magically appear. Right here. Somewhere around there. Explain to me, and I'm sure everybody else is really keen too, how this really amazing intuitive gift works. How do you actually go about doing it?
Okay. First things first is we just greet the animal. So I usually like to know the animal's first name. Ask me after this about why I ask for the last name, and I'll tell you a quick and short and very interesting but funny story. Okay. I just say hello to the animal, but the way I work through the intuitive gifts is there's the different clairs, CLAIRS. So there's clairvoyant, which is all-knowing. A clairvoyant is visualizing, so you get messages through visuals. You see a picture, you see an image. Sometimes it's hard to unpack, so what you do is you just kind of say, I'm seeing a balloon, does this mean anything to you, right? And sometimes that's all you get, and then you can go back and ask other questions. There's clairaudience, which is hearing, so sometimes I hear their wonderful voices. Okay. Everything from cutesy and fun to very older and wise. Sometimes I'm we did some chats with dolphins in the Bahamas, and some of these dolphins have been around for so many years, longer than their lifespan, but are doing wonderful things for the ocean and whatnot. So, and the reefs, oh my gosh, the coral reefs. So, so that there's clairaudience, and then there's claircognizant, which is all-knowing. So it's just a knowingness that comes to you. And I think that would actually be my strongest clair, because sometimes it's hard for me to explain to people. And then I realize that it's stuff that is common sense to me, but they're oh my god, that's so new news to me about my animal, and oh my gosh, how did you know that? I said, I just knew it. Yeah. So that one's really hard, and because we're such physical beings, we want to see it, we want to touch it.
Yeah, we need something tangible.
Yeah, and so try
looking at an atom, ladies and gentlemen. Electrons and protons, they exist. Or electricity. Yeah. You plug your appliances in, you know it's there, but do you see it?
Yeah. It's so hard.
It's true, right?
Well, we could get into this another time, but when the animals pass over. Right. It's so hard for people to wrap their heads around the fact that the animal is energetically still around. And still sending them messages and giving them signs and all those wonderful things. And there's people who don't believe in it, that after we have a chat, they're okay, same page, Meg.
And do you find that people are skeptical when they first hear about this?
Of course, yeah.
And does that, I'm a very open-minded person.
Yeah.
And I really am intellectually curious, meaning that if there's something new that I've never heard about, I'm curious. I want to find out. It's not a matter of do I believe it or do I not, but I think to your point, if you do some investigation, if you open your mind, gather some information, and then you have more of an opportunity to be open to possibilities that maybe you would have never known before.
Of course, and I want to thank you for being so open-minded, because that's the number one thing. That's to working with me. I've actually had to tell people maybe not the best fit.
Right.
Because there's just this sense of lack of, well, this is what I asked for. I said, I asked for it to be working with the direct owner of the animal, for the best communication flow and best intention for the animal.
Right.
The other thing is I asked for them to be open-hearted and open-minded. Okay, so that's number one. And even if people say they are, sometimes I get the sense I'm like, no. Because even people are a little bit closed off, I can get beneath the surface, but you wouldn't believe the people that are so open-hearted and open-minded, how deep we can go in those conversations with the animals.
Well, it makes sense.
And that's all attributed to their human, because that's who they're here for.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, it's very important.
That makes a lot of sense, though. Think about this in terms of discovery. You're learning more about yourself, and you're learning more about, your loved ones in terms of like your pets, and anything that's going to add value to that knowledge or that relationship. Why would you not open yourself up to it? You know,
you're absolutely right. And, we talked about this before and how they come for us. It's like the timing is exact. It's how they find us is exact. There's no fluke. There's no choice. There's no coincidence. It's not, all the ones that we picked from the litter were gone and this one was just left over. No, that's not how it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's bring the audience into this conversation, because we had this conversation like I think the first time we actually met.
Yeah.
Where we were discussing, okay, do you get the dog that you want or do you get the dog that you need, and are they choosing you? And I told you the story of Mackenzie and how she almost died and that kind of thing. And I really do, like in my heart of hearts, I do believe that the dog that you get, it's no fluke. No. It's no, because you hear stories, and because, you interact with tons of dogs and dog owners on a weekly basis. So I would imagine you would meet more dogs in 1 week than most people would meet in a year.
Yeah.
Right?
And just going back to what I do, doing public relations and marketing for pet brands, I've been engaged with many, many dogs on the regular, even before this intuitive ability, and I decided to kind of explore it. So there's something called a soul contract. Okay. That you will have with your animal or animals that you have in your lifetime. There's even soul contracts with animals that come into your sphere of life. So most any dogs that you encounter on a meaningful capacity, and it could be just say you babysat a friend's dog for a weekend, that's part of a soul contract. But the most meaningful ones are those that you've actually, brought into your life as a full-time owner. Okay, so you've decided a soul contract is before you're born, and now this is getting into a whole other realm. So people who are of a very religious realm may not believe in reincarnation and things like that, but basically the soul entities, your soul entity and the animal soul entity, before they came into human form, I had an agreement that I'm going to come to you at this time in your life for this purpose, to teach you X, Y, and Z, because there's always a purpose involved, and that's how it's going to go. And they plan their exit too. People always think, oh, I could have kept them alive longer. Oh, I shouldn't have fed them that. Oh, it's because we did this with them on that occasion. No, it's like the animal chooses when they leave, and you have to give them a little bit more credit. Not you, not you, Joe, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm like, Joe, you have to give your dogs more credit.
No, what am I doing?
Disney. Sorry, got into it. Got a little deep there, but it's about the soul contract. Look, if they believe in it, they're like, yeah.
So they know that they're going to be with you before you know it, or do you both know it at the same time?
That's an interesting question. They know that they're coming to you. They know in that time of your life, they know that that's going to happen. So what's the question? Like, you're wondering if you're going to know and they're not going to know, or they're going to know and you're not going to know?
Yeah, because, you hear about these stories all the time where somebody is in a time of their life where there's a lot of struggle. or there's a lot of pain, or there's a lot of something.
Yeah.
And whether they were planning on getting getting a dog in the first place, or considering getting a second dog, like in my case, something happens.
Yeah.
And then you hear this amazing story.
Yeah.
And please, anybody who's out there, help me out with this. Like, tell us your story if this has happened to you.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a lot more common, but I don't think a lot of people
are aware
of it.
Of course not. That's the beauty of life.
Right.
I mean, unless you have and we all have this intuitive ability. We have this ability to communicate with animals.
Right.
That I'll tell you that much. Some people get a sense when they see the animal to you're meant to be with me, right?
Yeah.
You get that click.
You hear that a lot.
Yeah. And we could get into the whole reincarnation and animals coming back for their owners, and that's a soul contract too, where you in the same lifetime lose a pet, then, comes back to you. So that's a beautiful thing, and I've experienced a number of those, which is really fun. But I want to go back to the human aspect in terms of readings, and sometimes I do readings, and this is really funny. I think your audience would really like to hear this, but sometimes I get an email. I do email readings, I do phone, I do Skype, I do in person, do little house calls, I call them. Meg Doolittle. But you know what? I get the questions, but sometimes, and this is where people are like, okay, so do you do human, are you psychic too? You do human communications too?
Yeah.
Here? But sometimes all the animal wants to talk about is their human. And they're like, okay, let's bring it back to, and I'm like, okay, you can lay out the questions, but it's their time.
Right.
Because they don't get to communicate with you that often. This is what they want you to know.
Right.
Usually they stick to script pretty much, but they'll always bring it back. They'll kind of answer the question, but in a roundabout way. So I'll tell you this much.
Yeah.
That this comes... Good, thank you for bringing this one to attention. Okay, so Mosley was a female. Mackenzie was a male in a past life. Because these are the boys.
Really?
Yes. Okay, so they can come back. Just to answer the question before it comes out of your mouth. So they come back. They can come back. Gender doesn't matter that much to the animals.
Okay, so what's interesting about that is for Mosley's whole life, even when he was a puppy, everybody would assume that he was female.
Okay, but then the whole thing, same thing for both of them.
And so the same with Mackenzie. So everybody assumed that Mackenzie was male.
Yeah.
And it was to the point, so Chantel and Cindy, if you're watching this, when Mosley was a puppy, they used to call him Princess and dress him up. and they would treat him like a female dog. So it's really interesting that you said that. That's totally true.
For Cindy and
Chantel.
Cindy and Chantel, it's okay. He was okay with that. I'm getting the okay. It's okay.
So
no hard feelings.
He was fine with it.
Yeah.
Do you think that he was speaking to them and saying, telling them, and I wasn't listening, but they were able to subconsciously maybe hear?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and especially there's always this communication going on between us and our animals. We talk about body language, things like that. That's always, they're so smart. They pick up so much. It's amazing.
Okay, so for those that are watching, we've had to restart the recording of the audio on the podcast because Mosley knocked the phone over and stopped the recording, and he happened to stop it at a part, the segment where we were talking about strange things that dog lovers do, and we were watching a video. Turned out to be not too funny, so we're gonna skip that part.
Funny to some people, not so funny to others. I apologize.
Okay. We're gonna skip it.
I'm speaking for the greater good.
Mosley, and my response to that was Mosley's actually looking out for my best interest and saving me from myself.
Yeah.
Was that a thing?
It was a moment.
It was a thing.
And I had to reassure Joe, I think, a couple times, because Joe's just just so disappointed. And I said, no, it's okay. Everything happens, that kind of stuff happens for a reason. And I kind of had to validate it, right?
Yes.
I justified it a bit because I said, wasn't that exciting, you know, to be honest. Like, I wasn't laughing. Like, you know, it's your friend. Of course you're laughing. I was like, I wasn't really laughing. And then, like, I'd like to have a good laugh, but I wasn't laughing.
Right.
So that's good. Let's just scrap it. And he's like, should we scrap it? Should we scrap it? Yeah, let's scrap it. Let's move on.
Absolutely.
So thanks. Thanks, Mosley.
Thanks, buddy, for helping me out.
Mosley says only the best content.
Only the best content. So Mosley should be my director, editor, sound person, the rest of it.
Basically. You've already got your team. You feel like you're alone. You're not alone. You got your team.
If I could just get my dogs to set up the camera equipment, that would be like the next thing.
Yeah.
It'd be perfect.
You know, I have to make a note because I sound like I'm joking about all this, but this stuff is coming to me from them. I'm
not joking about it. I'm not kidding. Like, I think it's one of those things where a lot of people will write it off to chance.
Yes.
Or coincidence.
Yes.
And they're not aware.
Yes.
Of what's going on. And they feel maybe a little bit silly for acknowledging it. So they brush it off.
Yeah.
But then talking to somebody like you, you're like, no. Actually, this is what's happening.
Yeah, and this is like I just want to segue to one really important thing in terms of giving someone watching at home, or wherever you are, a tip on how to do a little bit of animal communications. And the first thing I would say is get curious.
Yes.
So curious, why did that happen?
Yes.
What's going on? Like I literally was pooping on that content there for a little bit. Like, and then all of a sudden we realized Mosley, stopped the recording basically on us, and I got curious. So I think maybe I'm rubbing off a little bit after our conversation today, and then moving forward, you're going to look at things a little bit more through the lens of curiosity.
Absolutely.
And that's what I would encourage everyone who wants to work on their animal communications with their pet is to do that.
So should we go to the Instagram?
Sure, yeah.
Questions. Okay, so just for those who are watching who don't know, what I am doing to get a lot more interaction with the podcast is when I have a guest that has confirmed, I'll post a few days before the podcast. Mm-hmm. Here's the guest that I'm having. Here's the topic that we're discussing. Submit your questions and we'll do our very best to answer them. And I gotta tell you, we got a lot of response. We got 9 questions. So feel free to answer them, or maybe you can't answer them. That's okay. But I want to thank everybody for submitting the questions.
Thank you. That's awesome. That's nice to, I'm not surprised, right? We talked about this. Like, I'm not surprised. I'm like, I'm curious. There's still stuff I'm learning and I'm unpacking. So I'll try and answer them kind of to the best of my ability at this phase of
for sure
of this career.
Hey, it never hurts.
Yeah.
So the first question that we got is from Erica. Erica's question was, do you communicate with dogs that have passed?
Yeah. And
the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
And this is really sweet. Her second question is, how's my dog doing? So her dog passed away a few months ago. Beautiful Doberman Pinscher. I'll put a picture of her here. She obviously misses her quite a bit, and I miss her too, because I knew Stella really well.
Okay, so the first things I'm getting from Stella are, when I greet her, is cross paws and sitting pretty. I don't know if she ever crossed her paws much, or she did she's showing she was just a gorgeous dog. That's how she's showing herself to me, and she wants me to know that. And so Erica's question was, how is
Stella doing?
How is Stella doing? So
such a simple question.
Yeah. So when I greet Stella, so here we'll get it right into it. Why delay it? When I greet Stella, I get she's crossing her paws. So a lot of the time they'll show me, just like that.
Just like that.
And like sitting pretty, like she's acknowledging she's a very pretty dog.
She's gorgeous, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, even the way she just sit, like when you ask her the command to sit down, she's her front legs are straight, she's sitting on her bum. Looks quite beautiful there too. So that's the way I'm getting greeted by her. And then I ask her, so I'm going to go on to ask Stella. So I'm just so everyone knows, oftentimes I'll do some notes before I connect with an animal just to see what comes, because I'm a writer by trade. So coming through the pen is usually where I started my communications. Now it's a lot of like the other Claires, but there was a lot through written. And so the next thing I'm asking, do you have any messages for Erica? And she said, this is for Erica to discern. We won't get into it too much, but to make better choices. So when, like I said, when I greet an animal, sometimes I get a visual and sometimes I get the feeling.
So Stella's communicating to you.
Yeah.
To let Erica know.
Yeah.
To make better choices.
Yeah. So I don't know, and this is for Erica, but something Erica can noodle over.
Okay.
Is if she feels like recently she made some choices that she made them rash or too quickly, or she's making decisions right now that are out of haste. Mm-hmm. So just take it down a notch, because these choices may potentially have a big impact on your life, and so just make better choices. Who knows? It could be as simple as like, maybe don't eat that extra Snicker bar that's left over from Halloween. Or, like the little things. But she's there. And as I was saying before, is that they have the best interest for the human at heart, even more than the human might think. Okay. Right? The owner, the human. I say human all the time because I think in those realms. But
for sure.
Yeah.
I do too. Because I had a conversation with somebody I was working with. And I was using the term owner, and she didn't like it. And I actually pointed out that I don't like it either. Yeah. But it just, for communication purposes, people know what you're talking about when you say owner. But I like to say family as much as possible. Yeah. Would it be possible for me to ask a question to Stella for Erica that I'm very curious about, that popped into my head?
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay,
and if it's not the right circumstances or whatever, just let me know.
Yeah.
Does Stella want Erica to get another dog, or to have another relationship, or is she going to come back to her in some way?
Okay, you just asked me like 3
Sorry.
It's okay. The first thing that comes to me is I'm seeing like a couple dogs. Okay. So it may be they come into her possession, but not through, they all come in different ways. So it's like, my brother-in-law had a dog, and then they had a kid, and they had to get rid of it, and so then I took on the dog, and I already had one, so now I have 2. But I'm seeing there's like multiple dogs around her. It could be spiritually, energetically, but there's definitely a couple dogs around her. I'm seeing them as bigger dogs, almost like still similar breed. Like she likes she's saying she likes the big breeds. Like she likes the I don't know if she just loves what kind of
Doberman.
The Doberman. Yeah, maybe she just loves the breed, but she's seeing like it's almost like there's a pair coming. Okay. Yeah, that's really neat. So whether or not Stella, you're asking, is Stella going to come back? Okay, let me ask her. So when she says yes. She says when the timing is right. There's a lot of circumstances shifting in Erica's life right now. Okay. Where this might go back to the decision making. Sorry, Erica. Air your dirty laundry. You're not making good decisions, girl. But to be honest with you, there's this whole like shifting. She's going through some shifts, some changes. She's still grieving, Stella. Yes. So that's a huge thing. Is they're so joyous. She is so joyous. I never use the word joyous, first of all, so I'm getting the word joyous. On the other side, being her cheerleader behind the scenes, to keep going, keep pursuing. Your dreams are there. They're like, you're reaching them. Might not feel like it when you get a gray day, but like you keep going and you'll see the sunrise on the other side is what I'm getting from Stella. It's very beautiful, and Stella really likes to communicate with me through visual. Oh, okay. So I'm seeing, yes. And so she may be bringing another animal back with her, but I'm seeing it's like they don't come at the exact same time, but there's like a couple more dogs in Erica's future. I think if we put it at that for now. And
okay. So when you're doing a reading with a dog that's passed away, is that a lot more challenging than a dog that's still alive?
Surprisingly, no.
Really?
Much like all animals, some of them are a little bit more chatty than others. Some actually push their way into a conversation more. Just like humans, they all have personalities. So some of them are a little wittier, funny. Right. Other ones are a little bit more mischievous. Some are just, cute and cuddly and just have that warmth feeling associated with them. And some of them are flat out liars. Like,
really?
Just like people. Like, some people are like, God, you're a pathological liar. And then you're like, oh gosh, animals aren't that far. Like, they just... And it's also the perception. So the way they see something is different from the way you'd see something.
Right.
Like, they want to help their human, so they kind of communicate in terms that make sense for their human. But sometimes it'll be like, oh, I didn't see it like that. And then it's these little things, I call them planting seeds. I'll plant something and I'm like, does it resonate? I'm not sure. I'm like, leave it then. Let's move on, right? But I want to communicate it because it's coming to me. So that's the whole point of me getting out of my own way. Well, that was neat. We're talking about animals here and past, and the light goes out.
So Kenzie did that. Did you see how she unplugged it?
Oh, little goofball. So when I do readings with animals here past, and knowing that Mackenzie knew Stella, I wouldn't say she necessarily wants to stop the recording, but she's like really acknowledging the
that
presence.
We're talking about
because Stella, we invite the animals to talk on the other side, and the other animals that are here, they're still connecting. They can still, sometimes you'll see your dog playing around on the floor and think, gosh, it seems like they're playing with another animal. Mm-hmm. Maybe they are, especially if one was like close to them, or if it was like a first sibling, if you will. But the number one thing when I connect with an animal that's passed is, how long have they been gone? When did they cross over? There's this unspoken and unwritten rule to give a soul that has crossed over some time for a life review and to transition. So in animal communications, that's about 21 days. Now,
21 days.
I did my own research and asking around and getting some verification from very seasoned animal communicators. And the answer was that it's a very unwritten rule. And because I said, well, actually, I've successfully communicated with animals within like a week of passing, even some within a few days. Mm-hmm. I did notice like a bit of dissociated feeling, like they were there but not fully, and I wasn't getting kind of the clarity through the communication that I've had with other animals. Right. So the importance is giving that animal time to pass. So when I share that information with new clients that have an animal that's passed, I will use my highest level of discernment and intuition to help them figure out a time frame that makes sense for that animal. Right. And I'll tell you, sometimes it's not about the animal, it's about the grieving owner. Right. Right? So they need time. Sometimes they need a lot of time just to decompress and to grieve. Cry, right? To grieve. Just let it out. I say let it go and let it flow, because when I'm on the phone with someone or I'm in person, I'm like, you got tissue? And they haven't even started. And I say that and it's like, I go, okay, let it go. And because the energy's moving and we need it to move, because that's part of their healing journey. And I will tell you, again, another 9 times out of 10 is that the animal brings them to me. Right. When they're ready. Right. It's amazing. They'll email me months earlier. Mm-hmm. And they're like, can I just get the information? And they sit on it and they stir on it. Sometimes they forget about it. Right. And then one day they're like, oh my gosh, I just stumbled upon this and it made me think of you and here I am. I said, thank your animal. Thank your animal on the other side.
So in this particular case, do you think that Stella helped Erica to see the post on Instagram and know that this particular podcast was coming up to help her to reach out because she's still hurting?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can ask Stella. So the answer I'm getting from Stella is that she's party to the influence, but she's got to give evidence. She's like, gives Erica some credit too. Like, Erica found it. Yes. Erica looked at it, and Erica started to think of Stella and got curious, and that's where Stella's like, post something up. Like, in memory of me, not
Mm-hmm.
not in memory of me, but you're having memories of me, so post something up.
Erica's off in Vancouver. Do you have a lot of client base that's local to Toronto, or where do most of your, should I call them clients? Is that the wrong term?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, they are clients, right?
Okay.
Yeah. What else would I call them?
Yeah, audience. I don't know.
Yeah.
So your clients. So where do a lot of your clients come to you from?
Yeah, well, since I can do it across time and space, and I don't actually need to see the animal, I haven't met 3/4 of the clients that I have talking about the animals and the humans, actually. A lot of it travels by way of word of mouth, and I've got my biggest base, I'd say. I live in Toronto. We live here right downtown Toronto.
Yes.
But I've got a huge client base in New York.
New York.
Yeah.
New York City.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it's gotten kind of breed specific. So the big English Bulldog community is really come knocking on my door, and they're a special group, and they really love them. So the Bulldog breed out of New York. I mean, I'm doing other breeds, but of course it's just that right now. I've had clients in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah. Where else? East Coast Canada. Where else? That's about that. That's kind of like where it's.
So it's
really
kind of like
isolated.
all over the place.
Yeah,
Wow,
I mean
that's
that's
amazing.
that's the beauty of telepathy, is it's across time and space, and I don't actually need to see the animal. Sometimes it's nice to see after, because it's really about the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I get a visual of a dog, and it's actually looks different than when I got the visual, and I thought, well, it's really about the feeling, when I connect, what do I get? But again, there's that clairvoyance where I get visuals and stuff. So if it comes to me, okay, that's fine. I write it down and I put it aside.
Yeah.
That's the ego coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Then after, I'll say, oh, can I see a picture of the animal? And sure enough, I get it, and it could be bang on or it could be different. Now I thought, well, how is that off? I didn't get it. And why it's off is because animals have had other lives, and they look different, right?
Okay.
So they come back, like I said, different genders. Sometimes they came back as a male, sometimes they came back as a female.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this whole other aspect of what they looked like and what breed they were. And they can come back as different species. So I've known dogs to cross over and come back as birds.
Oh wow. Okay.
Right? And the message has been there that they wanted to spread their wings, and they wanted a different vantage point. They wanted to feel that freedom of flight. And I thought, well, yeah, that's cool. Like, what
that makes sense, yeah.
if you could, you would. There's also the crossover between very rare, and not that I've actually experienced, but I've heard of. So this is secondhand knowledge. Is they'll come back as actually, no, that's not true. I lied, because my dog has been in human form before. Yeah, we can talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But they can come back as human or vice versa.
Wow.
But that's not as common as coming back in animal. Animal stays as animal, human usually stays as human, but there can be that crossover too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's great.
How's that for you? Did that blow your mind?
That literally blew my mind. And I am not on any kind of marijuana or psychedelics, but it feels, it's really hard to explain. When you were talking with Stella, I was getting really emotional.
Yeah.
Just there was something about it that got it just the feeling inside me started welling up almost, which was very
and
odd.
it's a little bit unnatural for me too.
Okay.
And I don't want to say unnatural in a bad way, just different for me, because I'm used to having that communication directly with the owner.
Right, and we're just doing this through Instagram questions, which is not ideal circumstances. So what are the ideal circumstances for you to communicate with animals in the best way?
I'd say directly with the owner. With the owner on the other end of the one delivering the questions.
Right.
The one that I'm communicating with, whether it's over email or phone or in person. I think behind it is the intent
Mm-hmm.
and the energy connection for the purpose of the animal and the greatest good for that animal. I'm not saying you don't have that intention by way of reading the question on behalf of Erica,
Right.
but there is something there that adds a layer of authenticity and clarity for me.
Right.
This might be because it's new for me. I've never really kind of had so much of a third party. I did have an experience where there was a dog rescue community in the United Kingdom. And it was a group of people that band together to help look for missing dogs. Because in this particular area of the UK, there's a lot of bands of gypsies that come through and steal the dogs.
Really?
Yeah, and so I actually started helping this community of people, but they weren't the direct owners.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes the lag time between the communication wasn't there, and I just was like, it just feels like if you were the owner and I was communicating with you, we'd be like chipping away at this, like boom, boom, boom.
Might be easier.
Yeah, and it'd be faster, and the authenticity and the intent would be more pure.
One of the questions from the Instagram post was, have you ever used your gift to recover a missing or stolen animal?
Yeah, that was really, there's that little side story I was going to tell you. So
Yes.
The reason I ask for an animal's first and last name, people are like, what do you mean last name? Some people make it up, by the way, and I say, please don't make up the last name just for the sake of it. It is your last name if you're the owner.
So they take the family name?
Yeah, the family name. Simple. Keep it easy. Easy peasy. But then I was actually reading a friend's dog, you know, and she said, well, thanks for reading that dog. Now can you read, and this is over email correspondence, now can you read this dog, how did she phrase it? Now can you read this dog that's lost? I don't think she wrote it right properly. She said, that is lost. And so I'm thinking, and I said, okay, she goes, and the name is Gypsy. And I go, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like connecting, and I'm just, this is early days. This is when I'm just like, come on, give me the animals. I just want to practice. Like, I want to do that. And I'm still like that, but I was just so feverish to get pen to paper and see what came out. And it was funny because I stopped halfway through, which I rarely do. Usually I just keep going, but I send it off anyways. I go, so here you go. Let me know if it resonates. She picks up the phone, calls me right away. She goes, yeah, I think I miscommunicated that. So this gypsy dog is like crossed over, not lost, missing.
Oh, okay.
She goes, yeah, none of it resonated. I go, okay. It may not have resonated with you, but there's a dog out there named Gypsy that is lost and I'm communicating with.
Right.
So her and I spent the next hour and a half just Google searching like Gypsy lost dog, da-da-da-da. And then finally, it comes up, because the things I'm getting were like rural. It felt like to me, based on my humanness of what I've experienced in this lifetime, it felt like rural Ontario.
Okay.
Some rivers, some bodies of water. But then what came up in this Facebook post was, and it was a scruffy little dog.
Mm-hmm.
Scruffy little Yorkie.
Oh, wow.
And, but very resonating with the name Gypsy, and like, you know, was very certain that I knew her and that she was missing and that I was going to help her.
Right.
And then, so we find this post that comes up not 2 days prior about Gypsy still missing. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, Gypsy, okay. I'm like, so I take I think it's some small town Ontario name, and I plug it into Google, and I'm zooming in, and there's like a Scarborough, and there's all these like Ontario city names, and it's all these like rural kind of Ontario names and some bigger cities, but all familiar to me. And the visual I got from Gypsy is that it's on a body of water near a river.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I'm looking, I'm like, good, okay, there's a body of water and a river. And I'm thinking, like, where is this place? Like, these names all are familiar, but Scarborough's not near this Aurelia town. I'm like, why are they all so close? So I zoom out, and I'm like, holy shit, this is in the UK. And so I was like, okay, so there's a woman, she's part of the rescue team, who's posted this ad on Facebook. My friend goes, you gotta email her. I go, what? And say I'm like a crazy, I talk to animals? Like, I'm like so new. I hadn't put myself out beyond my friends' close circle.
Yeah.
She goes, email her. Just email her. So I email her. I kind of explain her. I say, I'm like, I'm a student. I really like play it down. I said, can I send this to you and you just tell me if it makes sense?
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, send it over. Send it to her. And she's like, oh, wow. She's like, that's really interesting. Okay. She goes, can you do me a favor and talk to this other animal we're looking for, and we want to know if it's how it's doing, okay? And that's all she says. Like, okay, you know, I'm like, again, I'm very hungry to try this, and I'm really excited. So I have to go back to her and I have to say, you know, I'm sorry, I think this dog has passed over and has crossed over. And she goes, oh, we knew that. We were just checking. So I got my test.
You're kidding.
And I really, you know, if I got that kind of test today, I feel like I'd be like really annoyed. But at the time I was just like, woohoo, like that's good.
Yeah.
Like, so then we started to work together for several weeks. But I think the important part is the dog has not been found. The dog is still at large.
Okay.
The dog has been taken by people who otherwise don't have the means of social media communication, very rural, very small town elderly couple, like maybe not doing so well, like quite elderly, like I was sensing signs of like maybe early dementia or whatever.
Sure.
And the dog is fine. It's being cared for, fed, it's warm, it's clean, but it's still obviously longing for its connection with its original owner. But then finally it just became like the tips that I could give to kind of help find them. So there's a lot of farmers markets, and farmers would come to town, and getting the sense that these people are of the farming community and would come to town to sell their goods. So, you know, the instruction was to go and post flyers and connect with the people running the farmers market and go to the farmers markets. Because they were far away. This dog had gone far. The sense was that the dog had been hit by a car and was kind of like, not in pain, but out of it and confused and like, I'm okay now, but I wasn't then, and giving me that kind of information. So that was kind of where we left it. But what I learned from there, based on helping some other animals in the UK with this rescue group, was that I need to be working directly with the owners. So being twice removed wasn't actually helpful.
That makes sense.
Because at the end of the day, and this is a huge disclaimer I have with all missing dogs, is that I will not guarantee their return to home. Because I'll tell you this, I've talked to dogs in that missing dog community that left home on their own and do not intend on going back.
Right.
Okay? So missing doesn't mean I'm missing and I'm trying to find my way home. It's like I'm missing, I'm having a great time, and I'm planning to do this for a while. I might come home, but that means we have to do some like negotiating, because I wasn't either happy with the habitat, the conditions I was living in, or the state of my relationship with my owner.
Well, that's interesting, because another one of the questions... So the question is, has a dog ever communicated with you that they are in a neglectful or abusive home? This is from K Mills on Instagram. So to your point, a dog might be missing, but are they missing because it's their choice?
Yes.
Yes. That has happened?
Happens all the time.
Right.
Happens all the time. And I'll call it a miracle that they get from point A to be unscathed, and they find their next soul contract to engage, because that's what they're doing.
It's a big risk. Like, there's a lot of danger out there for dogs.
I'm telling you,
in the wild.
Oh yeah. And that actually brings me to a local dog rescue that's doing fabulous things for the tiniest of lives, which is button noses. Nassim is quite the earthly angel, taking on all sorts of pint-sized dogs.
I met her at the meetup.
Yeah.
And I talked to her on the phone. She was supposed to be a guest, and then...
Yeah, it'll happen in its own time. It'll happen in its own time. So there are two dogs that they just didn't understand where they'd come from. They kind of knew bits and pieces of their story. But these are dogs that are like 3 and 4 pounds.
Yeah,
tiny
tiny
things. And I'll tell you the one, her name's Twiggy. She took herself for a walk. Okay?
Really?
And we're talking Toronto. Okay? Like I talk about this point A to B. Like, think about everything that could happen along the way.
Totally.
Like, between the cars and the other animals out there. Like, things like that.
Raccoons
that could get her, yeah. And she found her way. And she found her way basically into the arms of button noses. And the reading with her was that she's not going far from the rescue group, and that there's a woman that she's going to make a connection with, and she's going to end up staying with for the rest of her life. And funny enough, when I talked to Nassim, what would have been 6 weeks after we did the reading, is that it looks like there is a team member from the rescue group that is actually going to keep her. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And she's like very close to the group, and it's like a very special connection. They can have multiple soul contracts in one lifetime. Like the people who had, so who bumped around, like kept coming back.
Yeah.
Well, it was always to find you.
Yeah.
It's like, when are you going to just take me home already?
Yeah, so Meg is talking about Mackenzie.
Yeah.
And Mackenzie has an amazing story of peril all within the first 5 months of her life, where on several occasions she almost died. And the day that I got her, Kenzie got away the day I was getting her, which was on New Year's Day. Yeah. I don't know if that has any significance. But she came from a severely abusive home, was at a shelter where she was basically unadoptable because she was so afraid of people. She was petrified of people. And then when she got away the day I was supposed to get her, she ran away. She was out in the negative 26 or 27 degree cold all night for 15 hours. People tried to approach her. She jumped into Lake Ontario, which was partially frozen over. Somehow survived that, got out. I was frantic, calling all over the place. Finally got some reports of a German Shepherd puppy running across Lake Ontario. I'm like, yeah, that's my dog. I haven't actually put my hands on her yet, but that's my dog.
Yeah.
And I was in a state trying to figure out whether I was going to be able to save this dog.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you. So she's starting the new year off with a bang, okay? She's like, Here we go. New year, fresh start. Like, I'm coming in. Okay?
Yeah.
So she came out unscathed. So I told you before when I came in, but for your audience, I guess recap is that the connection between Mosley and Mackenzie, and I don't know if everyone experiences this or if this is just me coming through from my intuition, is that these two are meant to be together in this lifetime. They've shared lifetimes in the past together, but based on, age, they don't have that big of a gap though.
Well, I mean, Mosley's almost 12 and Kenzie's 5.
Okay, so it's big enough. Yes, okay.
Big.
So they're telling me it's a big gap, but I didn't think it was, but thanks for affirming. Sorry, guys. I wasn't listening to them. Sometimes they get in the way. And so they didn't know if they were actually going to be together in this lifetime.
Right.
And that whole ice incident that's where your miracle, like New Year, fresh start, you got a miracle. It's like, if that's not like sending you on a new path, I don't know what is. So it's like once Mackenzie joined the team, you guys are a team now, just so you know. That's always how they're going to reference you guys, especially since this is happening. Yes. Which is like, they're in the background. Like, I'm telling you, they're like the biggest cheerleaders. They're like, we're doing this. Yeah.
I can tell you, Mackenzie loves watching my YouTube videos. Yeah. She is absolutely glued to the TV. Yeah. She loves it.
Yeah. She's your,
So if I'm leaving...
Your editor and your producer and your...
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm leaving for the day, I'll put on a video and she'll love it. She does like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mackenzie almost died multiple times a day. She somehow... And keep in mind, she was 5 months old. Tiny little puppy. She survived the night. God knows where she was out there.
Did she go under?
She did, twice. Yeah. And she was stuck underneath the pier. Yeah. And it was me and 2 Marine Unit officers. This made national news across Canada. I was getting calls from people in Vancouver saying, "Why are you on the news?" And she was stuck underneath the pier, and I was like losing my mind. Yeah. And I was halfway over trying to get a hold of her, and I couldn't. And the Marine Unit officers came to where I was and said, "Look, we will rescue your puppy. We don't want to rescue you. Yeah. So get away from the water's edge." And I'm like, I don't care what happens to me. I'm like, this dog, there's no way I'm going to let this puppy
slip through your fingertips
there's
again.
No way. She's right there.
Yeah, I know.
She's right there. And the most amazing thing is...
Because, hold on, she'd slipped through so many times. She's finally going, "Hello, we're supposed to be together. Like, let this be." That's what I mean. She's coming in with a bang. She's got to make because you miss so many of her callings for you, because she's bouncing off to all these homes and coming back in like record timing.
Yeah.
And you're going, there's nothing wrong with this dog. I don't get it. And she's like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just not supposed to be with all those people. I'm supposed to be with him.
Well, the funny thing is so when I'm gonna wait for her to finish drinking.
But I'll tell you that this much about that incident is that it wasn't. Oh, Dad! Like it wasn't that traumatic. Okay, I'm not telling how you feel from her perspective.
Right, from her perspective.
She was like, you know.
Wasn't a big deal.
No, but she really liked the stardom. She, you know what? Watching the TVs, she's kind of like, oh, my Dad's been on here before.
Yeah.
Like, she's very aware. Like, we already talked about how you've got your watchdogs. They're watching over you.
Yes.
But, like, the awareness of these guys. And together, it's twofold. So, it's really nice.
Yeah. So, the funny thing is that this is a 5-month-old puppy that was deathly afraid of any human coming anywhere near her. Mm-hmm. And when they pulled her out of the water, mm-hmm. they gave her to me. I put her in my arms and she completely relaxed. Mm-hmm. She wasn't afraid. Mm-hmm. She wasn't squirming. She wasn't whining. She wasn't barking. Nothing. She just completely relaxed. I brought her home, wrapped her up in a towel. Yeah. Mosley and another dog that I was working with saddled up to her. So
keep her warm.
Keep her warm.
Yeah. And
I left her. Yeah. And she just fell asleep.
Yeah. And the next day it's like, what are we doing today?
Yeah. A
little bit, like there's a little bit of a lag time to get her kind of back up. But like for her, this is her in hindsight, the way she's looking back. She was fearful in the moment. Do not get me wrong. She's trying to get out of that ice. She's like, oh shit, like I really mucked up here. You know what I mean? She was looking for you the whole time, just so you know. She was just like, you know, and she found this along the way. But this is the light. This is like, look what I took to get to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, starting it all off, starting fresh on the right foot, you know, and you like getting into your hands. Like, I'm literally seeing her show me like slipping through the hands. There's no more of that. Like, you were there to catch her, you know, and that's when you sealed the deal. It was like, this is special. And you actually can always draw on that as being that initial connection, that initial day.
Yeah, I always think about it. And it was one of those things where I'd never been so happy and so relieved and so overwhelmed. And the sheer shock of her survival. Because I was like, there's no way. She's gone. She's either has taken off, she'll get run over. Like, there's all these things were going through my mind. She's going to get hypothermia and die. She's this tiny 5-month-old puppy out in God knows where overnight, negative freezing degrees. And then she fell into the lake twice. There's no way. And it was just one of those things where it was like so close when she was first getting dropped off. But then the person that was dropping her off got really upset, opened the back of her SUV. Kenzie jumped out, wiggled out of her collar, and just gone. Mm-hmm. And I chased after her, and I was just like, she was right there. She was right in front of me. And then, like, it was just so heartbreaking to see her take off like that. And I was like, I didn't get a chance to even touch her, like, even pet her. But then once I had her in my arms, that was it. She just...
Yeah.
Like that. She was totally, completely calm and happy. Yeah. And when she woke up, I remember I took a plate of kibble, and she was still like a little bit groggy, and I just put it in front of her, and I walked away, and she started eating, and I was like, she's gonna be fine. Just at that moment, I knew she was gonna be good. And she was.
Like, for what she'd been through. You probably expected, like, oh, this is going to take some time. Like, is she going to be okay? We're going to have to really keep a close eye on her. Like, hypothermia, things that go through your mind. But she's showing me, like, okay, I'm here. Like, I just made sure I was, like, we were good. Like, we're good now. Like, I'm not going anywhere. And I know your love for me. And that sealed the deal.
Yeah.
So she's going to teach you in this lifetime, because I got the download from her, is that it's going to be a lot about resilience and the keep going. She's got the keep going. Just keep going. So there's your cheerleader in the background.
Yes.
Mostly might be a little different. Hasn't come to me yet, but for her, it's gonna be a lot about the cheering on, and let's, because you can get through that, you can get through everything.
Yeah. I mean, I do draw, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here, and I don't want to make this about me, because this podcast is about everybody else.
God, stealing the limelight all the time.
Yeah. Don't get me talking about my dogs.
I
won't shut up. I mean...
Can we talk about my dog?
Yes. I mean, I gotta say, go check out
Rue_the_rescue on Instagram.
One of the most strikingly beautiful, unique looking dogs I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a big fan of dogs. Yeah. But there are some dogs that kind of stand out as just stunning, gorgeous. Well, we could talk about dogs and the communication that our lovely Meg does all day long. But unfortunately, we have to end the episode.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is leave it open to you guys. Meg has been gracious enough to not just come today, but to offer to come back again to do another reading, or to do a little bit more in-depth work with some dogs or cats.
Of course, open to the species, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I used to have a cat.
Cats.
Mosley lived with a cat for years. Gerbils, we love animals.
Yeah.
But this is a dog cat.
Yeah.
So if you are interested in finding out more, and I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be beating down your door, but why don't you share your contact information with everybody? So Facebook is?
Yeah, so it's Modern Day Dolittle. The best way to find me would just do the @ symbol, Modern Day Dolittle, all one word.
Okay.
Instagram. There's a little different, so it's still Modern Day Dolittle, but it's Modern Day _Dolittle. And you can email me. The email, you'll put it up.
I'll put it right here.
mv.doolittle, so my first initial, last initial, mv.doolittle@gmail.com. And my only stipulation really is how I vet my clients is the most open-hearted and open-minded, which isn't a huge criteria, but it's like, it's very important, and it's
reasonable. And
the other acknowledgement is that you are the owner of the pet that I'm doing the reading for. And we can do it via phone, we can do it via Skype, we can do it via email, and we can do it in person. Assuming you're in the downtown Toronto area. I do house calls outside of the city, so special requests are allowed too.
And this is how generous this Modern Day Dolittle is. She has offered to do a reading for one of the viewers.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to let Meg decide exactly how she's going to choose the winner. So Meg, tell us how somebody's going to win this fantastic experience.
Yeah, so we're going to offer up a phone or email reading. So email will be 3 questions. For phone, it'll be 30 minutes. We can coordinate a time to do that. But how you can enter is follow me on Instagram and Facebook. So my Modern Day Dolittle, you'll see it there. Joe's imaginary hand, which is gonna, poof, there's magic for you. And then make a comment below this video. So below, do the comment, follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and then you can enter to win a reading with me for your animal. Any pet, but you must be the owner. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Did you have fun?
I did, yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I can't wait for the bloopers.
It's going to be a shit ton.